Well, I took off my glasses, Dick. What do you think?
I think either or won't take from you.
I could put them on later when I'm talking serious.
Either will do good.
Can you see?
Yeah, that would look.
Can you see I just don't want to.
I can see if I'm not reading.
If you start thinking about something, put on the glasses. It looks good.
I'm not
okay. Yeah, and I can look at the floor. No, can we do a practice run?
We start off at the end, right? So we get
Marie.
Oh,
jeez.
This is troublemaker.
Right, that's that.
Molly.
We get Marie to start off first. Just tell us about your family. Who your family is, how they arrived in Slieverue, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
just
Jesus.
Go on.
And you'll be better at that.
Oh, yeah.
She's my sister.
This is not about necessarily about the test.
No, but we're just trying to get there.
Oh, yeah, right.
But just to put it into context, the reason why I'm saying this is that in 100 years' time, when people see this,
oh, Christ.
right? You know, I'm just saying, if you think about it, in way off in the distance, people will be looking at this and be saying, who is she now?
Okay.
Oh, who are they connected to?
Oh, okay.
So it's just to put yourself in context to the area and who your mother was and who your father was, where they came from and all that.
Okay. Oh, Jesus.
Go on.
Do I say my name as it is now?
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Or does she say who she's married to?
Say the whole lot.
Well, my name is Marie Walsh. My maiden name was Tyler. My mum came from Patrick up the road. She lived by the railway gates. And her father worked on the railway, my grandfather. And we moved then to Kilmorey, where my dad met my mum. She worked on a farm in Kilmorey. And my dad was from Kilmorey, so that's how they met. And she went off to England and became a nurse's aide over in Liverpool. And my dad wrote and asked her to come back, and he said he'd buy her a fur coat if she came back.
Very good.
So she came back and they got married. Mum was 25, Dad was 23, was he?
A bit younger,
This is my sister ran over here, by the way. Yeah. And we lived in Kilmorey, and when I was 3, we moved to Airmount on the Airmount Road in Slieverue. And very fond memories of growing up in Airmount with great friends.
Yeah. Go on. Pauline.
Hi.
That's your family.
My name is Pauline Cullerton, but originally, or Lee Power. I was on the Belmont Road, but my dad was a Slieverue man, Mixie Power. His mum was Bridget and dad Paul, and he had brothers Paddy and Marty and Stacia and Deela, and they all lived in the number 1 Slieverue beside Murphy's shop. So I'm sure a lot of people will remember that house.
I'm Pat Welch, also known as Dick Welch, so I'll better get that in so there's no confusion in the future.
Why do you have 2 names?
Don't know, Dick was just a nickname. We won't explore that any further. There's probably some benign reason.
Yeah, we know, but we can't say it on the video.
Was your father?
He was Patrick Welch, so I'm called after him. So I suppose my own family background is my father was a Glenmore man. My mother was a Dublin woman. They met in Dublin when he was serving in the army for 5 or 6 years. So they got married and eventually moved down to South Kilkenny to Kilmacow, and I was born in Kilmacow, and we moved down to Slieverue. And we lived in Airmount, the same as Marie and Anne, and a few doors down from them. And there was 5 of us in total, in addition to my mother and father. So that's it, a mixture of the Dub and the Kilkenny blood coming together.
And your father was in the army, so?
He was in the army during the time he was in Dublin, but obviously just spent 5 or 6 years there, left the army. They got married in the interim up there, and he drove buses in Dublin and stuff like that. And I suppose they just wanted to come back to their roots, really. So we ended up in Slieverue eventually, and as I said, he's a Glenmore man, so he was in striking distance of his own home ground as well. So yeah.
And your sister of Marie?
Yeah, Marie is my sister. Yeah.
And did your mum ever get the fur coat?
She refused the fur coat. She wanted him to know she came back for him. Oh. So she said no to the fur coat always. Yes, so lots of other nice gifts though he bought her. Yeah, she came back from England and they got married, and then they had nine of us. And we all lived, well, most of us were born, and the first part of our family were born in Kilmorey, and then the rest of us were born in Airmount. So,
and did she ever talk much about being in England?
She loved being a nurse's aide, but she always said that she would have loved to have been a nurse, but it never happened for her because back in those days you didn't go back and do your nursing. But she absolutely loved nursing, but never got to do it. My dad was a carpenter and a fantastic craftsman. You could watch him working forever. He had a great pair of hands. And he worked in Southern Refrigeration and then in Cromberg and Schubert in the last jobs he had. But he served his time with a guy called Cantwell in Mooncoin, and had a great, as I said, a great pair of hands. Could build or do anything with his hands. And so my mother then stayed at home and reared the nine of us, and most of us went to the Tech in Slieverue.
And we'll start off first with the primary school.
Yeah.
So, where did you go to primary school?
We went to primary school in Slieverue, and at the time it was like about 500 yards down the road from where we were living. And that was then, at that time, it was a very small school. There was 3 teachers. Mrs. Morrissey, who was the junior school teacher, and she was gorgeous. She was fabulous with singing and taught us all those lovely nursery rhymes. But they say she was never a qualified teacher, but she was probably the best teacher in the whole school because she taught for the love of it. Whereas the other teachers, there was a Miss Den, and Miss Den was she was a very stern teacher and liked to use the stick a lot. And she was a Tipperary woman and loved anybody that went in with the colours blue and yellow on them were like hot favourites for the day. You were sure to get on in her good books for the day you had the blue and yellow on. And then there was another teacher, Tom Hurley was his name, and he was in the top end of the school. He had the last, I think, 3-4 classes. So he finished us and sent us off to secondary school.
And did you all went to the same primary school?
Yeah, but we moved then down to the new school in the village. I think I was in 4th or 5th class when I moved down there, and all new teachers then started coming in, and we had Paddy Power. He was actually teaching in Ringville here originally, and I'm sure we thought he was great because he was into the art and the colouring, and I think it was the first time I ever had a pack of colouring pencils when I was in that class. But yeah, that's how where we spent our days.
I went to school in Ferrybank. I lived on the Belmont Road, so I went to school in Ferrybank until I was 13 and then moved to the Tech in Slieverue.
All right. So that was a girls' school in Ferrybank?
Yeah, there was a girls' and a boys' school in Ferrybank.
Okay.
Yeah. The nuns.
The nuns.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you... how did you end up going there as opposed to Slieverue? What was...
Because I lived...
halfway.
I lived halfway,
okay.
And I would have been within walking distance to Ferrybank. We all went to Ferrybank. I have 2 sisters and a brother. Val is my brother and Marie and Joan my sisters, but we all went to Ferrybank. And then my granny Power that I spoke about, my dad's mum, she got sick, and my other brothers and sisters went to Ferrybank, but I went to the Tech in Slieverue to help out, to look after Granny. And that's how I ended up going up to the Tech.
Oh, okay.
Just at the time, it was good, but I didn't mind either because it was a good school, mixed school. Yeah, yeah.
Let's stay with the Slieverue primary school for a second. What was the? I mean, I know you mentioned Mrs. Den was very cross and everything, very tough kind of woman. But generally, what was it like as a school? Did you like going to school there?
Again, as Anne said, we went to the old school in the beginning. For the start of our years, I have to say, going to the old school I found absolutely terrorising, because as a young child, I suppose to give you a flavour of it, the toilets were basically a big hole in the ground with a piece of wood across it and a little circle cut in it. So for a young child trying to use the loo and stuff like that, well, it mightn't seem too much now, it's quite daunting. But I never liked the old school part of it. Let's just say it was a very strict regime that didn't... But once we moved, as Anne was saying, once we moved to the new school, lots of stuff seemed to change. And again, as you said, the art with Paddy Power, who was, I think we were changing to a new school, but we were also changing to a new era in terms of education. They were starting to go away from the 3 hours kind of thing, and we were getting into the art and other areas. So we went to a new school, but we also came at an interesting time when we had a new headmaster, Paddy Power, who was into this new stuff that they were bringing on at the time. So it became much more interesting. So to answer your question in a summary way, I suppose the first parts for me anyway, in the old school were not good. I never liked it. New school starting to look good, things were starting to brighten up and become more modern, and the attitudes were getting better from the teacher side of it as well, you know.
And what kind of, I mean, like what kind of things would you get up to when you were small children? Like I'm just thinking about, like were you out on the road an awful lot, or what was life like for
growing
small
up?
kids?
Like as in school life or home life?
Whatever.
Yeah, in school life we've all played in the playground, and it was like it was 2 sections, but we all actually played together, and we played games like tag, which was what do they call it now? Tag or tag, tag. You know, skipping. We always had skipping ropes and hula hoops, and games like O'Grady said, wasn't it? O'Grady said, do this, and you know, those games where it was fabulous. The playground was fabulous because it was full and it was bustling with kids. And there was no such thing as health and safety in those days. Like you'd crash into somebody and you'd get up and you'd run off, and that was it.
Hopscotch. Hopscotch was a big one. Yeah, that was a big one. And
what else we used to play in the shed? We used to play in this. There was two sheds where we went for shelter if it was raining during the break, and they had little benches all around, and we used to sit on that if it was raining. We were outside at playtime, and that's where we went. But
and can you remember any of the boys' games? What did they do?
Well, again, in the old school side of it, probably the usual stuff. I was very young at that time. Again, into the new school, we had a much better situation where we had a playing field out the back where we could actually set up goalposts and play soccer and do all that sort of thing. And again, because we lived, just Marie and Anne and I lived up in Airmount, they had a hurling pitch. I know I'm getting away from the school end of it now, but the hurling pitch kind of lended itself to lots of different things. And at that time, the Gaelic Athletic Association would object to you playing soccer or rugby in the local pitch. We're going back a good few years. So I remember Tom Welch, who would have been part of the GEA structure in Slieverue. Tom would arrive up, maybe it could be even during the summer's day, and hunt us out of the field, because out of the hurling field we'd be playing football and soccer, but not hurling or Gaelic football, just pure soccer. We'd be hunted out because we weren't going with what the field was for, basically. Obviously things have thankfully moved on from then, but so a lot of football played in the second school, in the new school, in primary. That's the thing that stands out for me, and football, soccer and stuff.
And like, was there any, I mean, okay, so when you were small then, what kind of things would you know, way people now, I suppose, have lots of gadgets and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what would be your memory of things like Christmas and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I don't know, but for playing, I actually remember, I don't know if you remember playing shop.
Oh, shop was a big one.
Like we all had, you'd have the empty box of cornflakes and the jams, and you'd get your mum and they'd save them all up, and you'd collect them all for weeks on end, and then you'd make up your own shop. And you'd have it out in the shed at home or whatever, and then your friends would come and they'd have pretend money. We'd have stones or pretend money. Remember? And we'd buy a packet of crisps and a packet of whatever stock we had, and we all learned to add and subtract, and it was really, that went on for...
It was a very healthy...
Very long game of...
How kids developed, actually... you know, even blackberry picking for money. You know, we knew the value
we did a lot
at
of
a very
that.
young age. You know,
Alice
we knew
Purse's dad used to collect the...
Was that
did you
right?
know
Is that
that?
right? Yeah, I
I know,
didn't know.
Davy Purse's.
Right, I didn't
Davy's
know that.
dad.
He's come in the van.
Yeah, used to come in the van, yeah.
But like, you know, in the summertime we'd be all picking blackberries. You know,
we
to
all
get
went
a
to
few
Barton's.
pennies.
Do you remember Barton's?
Barton's is another place.
We all went there and picked...
So a different game now to what was... A different game then to what's there now for kids, where we actually... you know, it was good. We went out and earned a few pound ourselves
Yeah.
and knew
Yeah,
the value
That's
of
when
it.
you got older.
Yeah.
Also,
But
we
do you
used to
remember
play a lot down the
the
bogs.
knocks, down the
bogs.
That's right, yeah.
Up the fields and down the
Yeah.
knocks. You could be gone all day.
Missing all day.
No one would come looking for you.
Not at all.
You're going to come home at some point.
And you'd be in a stream, you'd all find a stream, and you'd build a dam the night before, and you wouldn't have
swimming.
fancy swimming
That's
gear.
right,
We'd
that's
all,
right,
you remember
yeah.
that? We'd all go swimming. You'd be missing for the entire day, building a dam and doing your swimming,
Yeah.
and you'd be telling you'd be imagining you were at the beach, or there'd be a field beside us where we lived. It was Cloverfield, and they used to do bales of hay, and we spent all summers
Making tunnels.
making tunnels, making tents, making. The farmers probably weren't impressed with this because they were the square bale at the time, not the round ones. So we were all able to make fabulous things. You do amazing sheds and
Yeah.
That's
big
right,
long tunnels and slides down, and that was I really remember the summers
Paradise.
would be that.
It's paradise
wasn't
for
it?
kids,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And like picking the fruit and all that kind of stuff, that was like you got money for it. Who would you bring the stuff to?
Well, as Anne was saying, or as Marie was saying there, a man would come along with a van, and he'd have barrels in the van, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
And he'd weigh, and he'd weigh the bucket of stuff, and of course we used to.
Put water
What
in
did we
it.
do? We all added the
We used to be a little bit illegal with it in some ways. Yeah, we'd add water in to get the weight.
That
up
was
a little
our
bit.
mischief.
Only a little bit of water now.
Yeah.
Didn't do any harm.
Big cup on if you
Yeah,
put too much in it.
yeah, too much, you know, yeah. So he used to weigh it and pay us on the spot. So it was great for kids, you know, because you had instant few bob and.
You go into to school with
The
your
hands would be
hands
all-
red for a week.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was an interesting way of making a few pound
And you mentioned Barton's. That was they were a local landlord, was it? Or
Yeah.
local
They had.
landowner?
I don't really
Do you
know. I
know
never
about
worked. I
Barton's?
know
I didn't
Barton's, but
work
I
in-
never worked
I know
there.
my older brother Leo did work
Yeah,
in
he
Barton's,
would
all
have,
right,
yeah.
I didn't
So
work
did
on
the lads,
Barton's.
yeah.
Most of my
I
work
picked black
was-
currants, I
yeah,
remember, and
yeah.
they were
Yeah.
awful things to
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
because, as you know, they're not the size of your nail, so they're
Yeah.
tiny. You'd have to pick buckets and
Yeah.
buckets of them to.
Yeah, and I picked peas up the road. In Dick O'Mahony lived up at the top up in I think it was Mary Burke's house on the corner, and he had a field at the back, and we were paid to go pick peas there. I also picked potatoes, tin turnips. We went tinning turnips for farmers around. Yes, picking potatoes and Hogan's. That was just the best place ever because they used to bring big teapots of tea down the field and big sandwiches, and we'd all sit down and have the hot tea and the picnic in the field. And then at lunchtime we all went up to the house. And she was a great cook. She was American actually.
Yeah.
And the story was that he bought a sweep ticket from her in America, and the promise was if he won the sweep, he'd marry her. It was seemingly a joke. I'm not sure if it was true or not, but he did win the sweep, and he married her in America. So she
That's
came
some
from America. I don't know if
Wow.
it's even true or not.
Hattie Griffin, didn't
Yeah,
she?
their son then.
From
Yeah,
the village,
yeah.
from Slieverue village. Yeah.
Yeah, so we used to
gentleman.
Marion Ryan. It was a lovely place to work. It was fun and ease down there. And the lunches then, the big dinners up there, and those new potatoes on the table. Sure, you couldn't beat them.
But you don't kind of remember how hard the work was. It's more like
That was lovely. That was a lovely time because it was fun. You didn't think of it as work because you were with a group of friends and you'd have to crack. You know, I remember another time going tinning turnips, and I must have been getting a little bit more self-conscious, or I wanted a tan anyway. But I remember taking off having a low top, and I remember getting absolutely scalded, sunburnt. Picking tinning turnips. Yeah.
There was no sun.
There was no sunscreen. I'm pretty sure the mark is still there on the back. Yeah.
And come here, just when you were small then, like when you were in that primary school time,
Yeah.
would you ever remember going off on an excursion somewhere? Like say if you're going off down, whole gang of you heading off someplace, where would you go to?
From school on a bus.
Or wherever. No, even just walking or bicycles or anything.
Oh, we used to always walk to Carney Stream and
Carney Stream.
go up to Tory Hill and climb the hill and do things like that. All right. When we got a bit older, and obviously we wouldn't be allowed when we were really young, but
Yeah.
when we got a bit older, we used to.
We lived on a row of there were 12 houses there, and there was nearly somebody in every house that would have been in
tagging
or
along
around
together,
our
yeah.
ages. So we would have all hung out. Like there was, there would have been somebody in. My friend would have been a sister to your friend, and we all, Maggie and Esther Rochford, and Breathe Cleary and Maggie Cleary, like we would have been all, someone in the families were all like steps of stairs, so there was somebody, there was always kids playing on the road, sitting at the side on the footpath and playing with stones even, you know, playing marbles or whatever we had there going on. And as Pauline said, we did hopscotch on the side.
Hopscotch was huge, and the elder always minded the younger.
Yeah.
Like you just had no choice. It was automatic that the eldest brother or sister would bring the other two, and
and I remember the shop you were talking about. We used to have a shop down at the Chapel Walk gates, and there were big gates going into a walkway down to the chapel.
Which our grandfather made.
Did he? And there were all little stones, and there was little holes in the walls, and we used to put all the little the sweets in the holes, and all the stuff Pauline said we collected from home. We'd bring it down there, and that was our shop. And anybody passing in, any of the kids coming and going, it was great fun.
It was great fun.
It was. We used to always go up to the woods. And climb trees. That was a huge one. And make tight, like Kiss Chase. We won't go there.
I never did that.
Yeah, we used to put ropes. We used to make tight ropes up in the woods and try to walk, try to play as if we were in a circus.
We used to dress up the animals. Sure, remember dressing up Spot?
You tell that one.
And that's all about it. But I remember that.
Yeah.
You know, dressing up the dogs and things like that. And
I loved being on top of trees. I loved climbing trees.
Yeah. We did very simple, like because I lived in Ferrybank then away down from Ann, I spent my young childhood up in Belmont, which was the hospital. And there was a farm up there and a big garden, and myself, a neighbour of mine, Ann O'Keefe, the O'Keefe family, we played all up to 15, 16, played in Belmont the whole time. And there was now there's no way would you be allowed to play in Belmont. But back then, you know, we were there was the Brothers of Charity had it. But that's where we
used to
played,
go to the discos then
up
on
to
the
the woods,
Tuesday night,
climbed, and there was a dance on a Tuesday night that we played the music, and you know, we were told go up and dance with the boys and with all the patients, and that was our Tuesday night entertainment and disco. And we were very young. Myself and Ann O'Keefe were actually in a band. We played guitars and we sang. We were the entertainment for the night.
I didn't know that. I don't remember that.
And two other brothers that used to play music. And then we'd have Christmas and Easter. We'd dress up and we'd be planning our costume to go up to Belmont, and it was great for the boys. It was great, and that was all. Like now they go swimming and they've movies and they have all that entertainment, but that was it. But that's where I spent my youth, was up in Belmont.
And you mentioned your granny. I just wondered, do you remember any, when you were young like that, do you remember any of the old people that were around that would kind of stick up in your head?
Well, again, Paddy Daddy, which was your grandfather, actually stands out because he was a regular visitor up there. He was always up and down. And then there was always a few older characters that would pass up and down the road who's
Deconic,
just unusual, quaint kind of people that were quite elderly at the time, I think. And, you know,
Deconic used to go down to have his few pints in the pub down in Stapleton's, and he always called to my mother on the way home for bread soda, because bread soda was a cure for heartburn. And he'd come in and he used to do this little thing as if he had a little dog. Do you remember he used to do? He used to talk about about getting over a sty, dog jump over the sty, and I can't get home till morning. I can't remember it now, but
it's hard to remember. That's my grandfather actually up there on the wall. Sorry, Anne, for interrupting you, but that would be my father's dad up on the wall there. Granddad Power.
Was he in the First World War?
Yeah, so but Paul Grant now would be the one to Paul.
We'll get off.
That's.
And then there was the Foresters just up the road. They would have all cycled everywhere, but they all dressed in really dark clothes, and you would get scared. You would be scared of those older guys because they all looked like smoky, like you said, from the fire, and they dressed in dark clothing, and they cycle. You run when you see any of them coming.
Hartley, do you remember Hartley? Eddie Hartley. I hope he doesn't mind us mentioning him by name here now, but for years they had a horse and cart, you know, when tractors were well in play, like they still had a horse and cart, and they went up past our 12 houses, you know, sometimes with the cart full of turnips for the animals up the road, the cattle up the road, and we'd be nicking
stealing them.
and nicking the turnips off the back of the
running after them,
but
trailer.
I remember,
trailer, yeah.
Yeah,
Peeling with their teeth.
They used to when we were kids. When I know I'm a little bit older than you, and when the turnips were fresh. When he was going down the road, he'd stand at the back of the trailer, the horse still running, and he'd drop the turnips along the road for us so we could pick them up and bring them in and have them. But it was a great way of getting a lift to the shop as well. And to try, you'd run down when you see the horse and cart coming, and you catch on to the back of it and try to stay there without him seeing you. Because obviously it was dangerous. But that's how we often got to the shop, you know, hanging out at the back of... Jimmy Hartley's. Jimmy, it would have been Jimmy, the older brother.
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
it?
right.
Yeah. Other great characters with Mary Murphy in the shop.
That's right.
And Dick Murphy, the postman. When Mary used to sell the fags to us for
individually,
tuppence each. You know.
But she was a great one for those sweets as well. And people then, in those days, in the grocery shops, you'd always have a little book. So you go down and get your stuff for my mother used to have the bill, we used to call it. My mother used to say, go down and ask Mary Murphy for the bill. And get it on the bill.
And even the L&N van used to... that used to come to the houses.
And the bread van as well used to come.
Bread van and the milk
Portlaw
van.
Bakery used to actually stop and sell the bread out of there.
Yeah, and a great hangout place then when we got a little bit older was Betty Griffin's Corner.
That's right,
There's a little wall, curved wall on the corner, and we used to sit there and chat when we got a little bit older. So.
And you're kind of moving on to that period.
Yes,
again.
again.
You went to secondary school. So all of you went to Tech?
Except
Paul.
No,
you did.
Well, I went to Ferrybank for the first year. I went to the convent in Ferrybank.
And the notions about you?
They had notions about me because I think I might have been a little man mad. I'm saying this on air.
She still is, yeah.
Mad,
that's what they would say. I liked the boys.
Dick,
No, a couple of my friends were going to the convent, so they decided I would be a perfect candidate for the convent. And at the time, it was down. It was divided in two, Ferrybank Convent, and there was an upper part and a lower part, but they divided the two then the next year. But I really wanted to go to the Tech. Because it was cool up there. It was cool, and after a year, but I brought that fear in school that we had in primary school. There was a fear there that you were always going to get slapped or in trouble, because it was like when you said you shifted to the other school. I think corporal punishment was more or less done away with at that stage as well. But like in my primary school, if you wanted to go to the loo, that very stern teacher. You get a slap if you went to the loo, but you'd also get a slap if you didn't go to the loo and you peed, which often happened. It was a regular occurrence. You were scared to ask to go to the loo.
Afraid to ask
yeah.
to go to the
Yeah.
And then going to the Tech then, what's your memory of going into the Tech? What was it like? You all knew each other then, obviously.
Well, the step for me, I don't know, for me, going from primary to the Tech was a whole change in culture altogether. Like we went from a reasonably strict regime, even in the new school we'll call it. It was starting to lighten up. Still strict enough, which is still probably the case in primary schools. But the Tech was a different place. It wasn't like that. There were rules obviously, but once you stepped inside that door, while it was a school, there was a certain freedom about it. It allowed people to kind of develop within the school. It's very hard to put into words exactly, but it allowed you to develop within a secondary school, and there were rules, but it didn't stifle you. Sort of, it was a total breath of fresh air altogether. You actually looked forward to actually going to school, and the Tech was a whole different place. I know for me anyway. I'm sure
it was.
It opened up a whole load of stuff.
For me, it was like a different learning experience as well, where there was no fear in the learning. You weren't learning because you had to have this done, that you were going to get a slap if you didn't know it. It was like you did it because you loved doing it. Yeah. And that was the difference.
And the teachers were really nice.
Yeah, they were.
They were all very nice. Like we did for the girls now. You probably remember we did a subject called home economics. We did it with Miss Kern, and that home economics involved knitting, sewing, cooking, and what she called laundry and husufry. That was a kind of the posh name, but it was literally
Just learning how to be a
learning how
housewife.
to wash, learning how
to iron shirts,
the basic things in life are definitely the ingredients to
to
be a good wife.
I mean, you'd still remember to this day how to iron a pillowcase or the collar of your shirt or whatever.
The-
you know,
The tree screen fold, wasn't it?
So we actually learned the basic things in life, but it was fun. She was really and truly excellent, an excellent teacher, and I would have got a lot of confidence now in the tech.
They had exceptional teachers there.
They did. They gave
and then
you
the secretarial teachers were lovely.
Oh my God!
And John Callan was brilliant for the music. We used to do the Fail in a Skull every year.
And then you had Jim Welch.
And Jim
Welch was
the maths teacher.
Jim Welch just,
and science.
Probably no reflection on the other teachers. For me, anyway, Jim Welch, I don't know if you guys agree now, but he was in a category, still is, in a category of his own.
Yeah.
I mean, for Jim Welch, he was a science and maths teacher and very good at that, but he was also a coach, like a mentor kind of a person. I mean, for me, anyway, the first probably decent job I ever had was actually working for Jim up in the glass houses, picking tomatoes and looking after the tomatoes. And subsequently then he had me cutting the grass in the tech during the summer and keeping the garden right and bits and pieces like that. Yeah. But he was, and no, I'm not taking from the others, they were all good. Yeah. But he was a kind of, for him it was a vocation. Almost.
Yeah. He was an excellent teacher.
He was something out on his own, without doubt.
I wasn't any good at maths now, would have been my worst subject. So I had a fear of Jim Welch. Because I was useless at maths. But and really, I always remember Pythagoras' theorem.
The theorem. I was just going to say the theorem.
Square and the hypotenuse equal to the sum of the square on the other two sides. I still have no idea what that means to this day. I still don't know what it means. But I remember I lived in Australia for a good few years, and actually one time we went to a quiz, and we were coming up in the quiz, and wasn't it the final question in the quiz? What is Pythagoras' theorem?
And you knew it.
And I was able to stand up, and I thought, wow, Jim Welch, there you go. But I still didn't know what it meant, but everybody thought, she's something else. But it carried me again. It's just something that stayed with me. But again, he was an exceptional man.
They were able to recognise things in people. You know, again, maybe not being so good at maths, there's other stuff that we can do because we're good at something or we're good at something else. And I think there, in that school, in the Tech in Slieverue, they tended to nurture. They spotted maybe how you were getting on, as all schools probably should. And they kind of nurture different things. I remember one or two individuals that, you know, they mightn't be that, what we'll say, academic, whatever that's supposed to be. But they'd be good with their hands and good at different things, and that was promoted then. They'd spot that, and the woodwork and the metalwork would come into play.
We were talking about that.
And some very good people came out of there, some very good swordsmen.
Absolutely.
If you remember in the tech, which is totally gone from the education now, when you started in your first year in the tech, say you did about 12 or 15 subjects, and then the following year you did what was called a group cert. And when you did your group cert, if you remember, did you do your group?
Did you?
And when you did your group cert, they sort of looked at what talents you had and would advise you then, well,
steered you.
Drop French and whatever, and for the boys now, concentrate on your metalwork or your woodwork, or so they gave people a chance. And then you moved. Then we did our intercert with only limited 8 subjects, or
more
because
refined.
They had more. They went through.
Yeah, I think the intercert only started when we were there in the tech. It was always group cert. They didn't have leaving cert in the tech at that time either. When I was in the tech, we didn't have leaving cert. Straight after intercert, we did secretarial course, which was shorthand and typing and bookkeeping. And it was fabulous. That was Miss O'Shea and Miss O'Brien, the two teachers, they were outstanding.
They were great,
And like what you were saying about the teachers nurturing, you know, not only did they nurture us, but like they would come in. Christy Fuhr, who was he was the founder of the school, like he would come in and tell you there's a job going here, and they actually would make sure you got in for that interview. They would drive you in for an interview, and they'd pick you up
It
from
was
it.
a whole package.
Yeah,
It was a whole-
yeah. I remember being driven in by one of the teachers into a solicitor's office in Waterford for an interview, and it was in Kiersey's. Actually, they were down Barnes-Strand Street, and the interview actually lasted a day and a half. He called me and had me do work to see how I was, and then said come back in the morning, and it was the next day. And then I got offered another job in George Nolan's, another solicitor's office in Waterford, and it was all through Mrs. O'Brien and, you know, the teachers telling you.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, I heard they're looking, because even the offices in Waterford would at that time contact the tech if they needed somebody. So it was great.
It would have had a good reputation.
Yeah,
it had a
actually,
great
sending good people out.
But a lot of guys people came out from town as well to school in Slieverue.
Right.
Yeah.
There was
Actually, the Hogans,
Jerry Short,
Willie and
That's
Ian
right.
Hogan,
Children,
turned
yeah,
it.
that's right.
They cycled from Ballygunner
to the Tech and
to the
Slieverue.
Tech for 3 years.
Yeah.
The Hogans.
And again,
They sometimes
yeah.
got a lift with Christy Fiore as well, didn't they? In the winter time.
In the winter
came
time,
with
but they
Christy in the
cycled
car.
for 3 years.
Yeah.
And they would have been, I'm not saying the two lads were, but some of the people that came out from town would have been people that might have slipped through the cracks had they not been picked up by Christy. Christy would have had his ear to the ground in whatever contacts he had. And yeah, like the lad said, you know, people would arrive out. There was one chap, I won't say his name now, came from John's Park, which is in the city, obviously.
Yeah.
So that would have come through Christy, who would have spotted it. And the guy, I think he went off, he'd have a trade now and that sort of thing. But it meant that people were able to use the skills they had, where in the conventional secondary schools that were in the city, you either sort of got your intercert stroke leaving cert or you didn't. And if you didn't, you just went off and did something. But at least here you could go and get a trade and do all kinds of things. And it's worth saying as well that a lot of the people, I mean, I can think of 2 or 3 business people that are very successful that came from the Tech and Slieverue. A lot of people that left the Tech and Slieverue, moved on, you know, did their time there, moved on. They had a certain confidence.
Yeah.
You know, they went to work in the civil service. I can think of a few, 1 or 2 in the civil service, different things. And, you know, they had good confidence going out there. That I think stayed with all of us.
I think it's
for most of our lives.
They did instill that, because when we went to primary school, you were always told, get in the corner and stop Egypt and your Ludramon and your, oh my God. If,
regimental.
You were called horrendous
the nuns,
names.
weren't you?
Yeah, I was with the nuns, So we were all, we were knocked the whole time. And then if you came home and told your mother, Mammy, I got in trouble, you wouldn't tell her, because she'd give you another clip in the ear when you come home, so you'd be in more trouble. So we didn't have that in the Tech, and it did give us, we gained back our confidence, and they did nurture us. And then they did, like Anne said, they kind of looked out for us career-wise then, because I worked in Clover, and as did Marie. And I purely got Clover because of the Tech, because I did the secretarial course, and we did, but they would be classed today as degrees, actually masters. And I'm not
probably,
you know, but we did your basic, but in Clover we did switchboard, computers,
sales.
I did shipping, sales, you know,
debtors,
marketing,
creditors, all
you know.
that sort
So
of thing.
we're not boasting, but we
did.
You got a good grounding there.
We got a great grounding and great confidence that you'd go and do those jobs. You wouldn't be afraid to do them.
No, but the typing, we learned to type on the old-fashioned typewriters. You'd often see them in those really, really old movies where the keys were little round keys on them, and they get stuck. Murder, she wrote. Yeah. So, but it was like the teaching was like the teacher at the top was Miss O'Shea at the time, and it was A S D F semicolon L K J. So you learned all the keys where they were. Whereas now you see the kids and they're on their computers and they're flying around. I've no idea, but we did Greg shorthand, wasn't it? Yeah. So you learned to take dictation, and you wrote it down in shorthand, and then you typed it back, and that was our training for the office.
That'll be the equivalent now to having. A fairly high standard kind of in IT stuff.
Absolutely,
because that was the IT.
That was the IT, exactly.
It
was the IT.
Oh yeah, you'd be saying, so-and-so have 65 words a minute now.
Yeah, very well qualified.
Actually, Maggie Rochford was absolutely. She had huge speeds,
and she went into the civil service. She went into the tax office.
She's still in there. She's in the courts now. You probably know her, I'd say.
Yeah, you got a good grounding. No doubt
so
about
we
it.
certainly got a good grounding. And good fun. It was good fun.
It was
And
good
talk
fun.
about the fun in the tech, because I mean, there was a social side to it as well.
Yeah, we had.
We did
We were in the
disco
same.
to- for
we were in the
Christmas.
same class
Yeah.
cafeteria for sure.
Yeah.
Because I came into the. We had a class song. We used to sing Swanee. Do you remember that song?
No, Anne.
I won't sing it, but we used to sing in when you're waiting for the teachers to come in after the breaks. We used to always sing in class. You know, we sing Sleepy Joe. Do you remember that one?
That was
And
the Trees O'Brien though.
yeah, it was lovely. And it was fun. What were you? We did basketball.
Yeah, that was the big
And,
thing. Like,
Basketball was the big sport of the
Miss
day.
Judy.
And it was very heated as well. You know, you wanted to have certain people on your team, and if you didn't get it, you'd go hell for leather to get them knocked out of the game. I was a bit competitive, I have to say, in basketball. But what else did we do? So we smoked down behind the prefabs. Yeah, we used to bring in the old cigarettes and hide down behind the prefabs and have the smoke at break time.
I remember Jed and the Southern
Southern
Express
Express.
playing at the discos for the Christmas party. Do you remember that?
No, I don't
Oh
remember that.
God!
Christmas party in the tech.
Yeah, in the tech.
that was good.
And it just be on in the night.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
That was a real-
get all done up and
That was a
off we
real
go.
shift in things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
shifted all right.
Yeah.
It wasn't smoking behind the prefab then, it was snogging.
Smoking, yeah. But the principal in the school used to smoke as well.
Yeah, and he
always
used to
had a
smoke in
cigarette.
class.
Smoking
he'd
class.
smoke in
His
class,
his claim to fame.
Yeah.
Actually, it was one thing that stood out. And I was just speaking to someone about it the other day. He'd have a cigarette ash about 2 inches long.
Yeah.
But he'd be talking away. He mightn't be smoking it
Yeah.
at all, or he
Yeah.
was doing something at the board. He might put the thing somewhere down and whatever. He smoked in class. But
Yeah,
he
yeah,
wouldn't be heard of now. Sure, yeah.
God, we're sounding like 100 here, but we're not really.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the two of you worked in Club Meats.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people from this area work in Club
Yes,
Meats.
they did. I remember now as a child, Paddy Marr getting the meat parcel for Mammy and Daddy on a Friday evening.
Yeah,
Do you
Jimmy
remember
Rochford.
that? Anne?
Jimmy Rochford did the same
Jimmy
thing
was
for
a
us.
fitter. Jimmy was
yeah.
a fitter, and
Jimmy used to come home
who
with
else were Paddy Marr, Frank Hayden, all
Yeah,
those
they all-
older.
and,
Jim
we-
Cuddies, didn't
It was,
their
a
dad
great,
work
it was a
there?
great employer. He
Yeah, it was.
very
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
But as you say, Paddy Marr used to cycle home,
Yeah.
and he could have 2 big bags of meat on his bike because he would get meat for us, and then we go down and pick it up at his house on a Friday evening.
People
Yeah.
came from my mum now. She was from Kilmacow, but she actually worked in Clover in the factory, and she
so
cycled
did
from
Mammy.
Kilmacow, as did
Yeah.
your mum, and a lot Mulnavat, Kilmagany, Winegap. They cycled. They all
Yeah.
cycled.
Yeah.
Glenmore all cycled, and I used to walk to Clover, but sometimes I get a lift from Willie Veriker, who was Lord Mercy on him. He was over there by the Rue Glen. I still know his number. He was 232. It's a funny thing in my head because I worked in cash sales.
Yeah.
When we started, we used people to put in their order, their meat order, and they'd have to put their name and their clock card number and we'd write in all the orders. But half the time they'd either forget a name or forget a number. So you'd recognise their writing.
Yeah.
You'd say, "Who's that now?" They'd say, "Oh,
They'd
that's."
know their number.
And you'd know their number. So
That's Shawnee Kennedy.
it happened. Yeah, he's 419. And that people die in Firebank. Mammy would ring me and say, "Tommy Burns." I'd say, "Oh God, Lord Mercy." Oh, 459. Tommy.
Yeah.
And to this day, and it's amazing. And I haven't a great head now, but I would know the bulk of clock
I was the
cards.
same. I worked putting codes
Numbers.
for the meat.
Yeah.
The different codes for all the different sausages or whatever, and you'd have to write down the code
The
after
codes.
it. And I'd remember to this
Would
day.
you remember those?
02143, 05029 is cooked ham, you know, all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's still just.
And it's
So you were
It's
inputting
amazing.
that in.
So
You know,
they were
were doing it
moved
for so
on to the
long,
computer
yeah.
then, but I would totally remember. I actually another funny when I came back from Australia one time, James and we went up to a pub up in Tullahocht,
Oh, yeah.
Willie Maloney's
Yeah.
pub in Tullahocht, and we went in there and I said, "James, oh, I know him now, Willie Maloney." He came over and he said, "Oh," I said, "Willie," I said, "87." And he went, "Oh my God, I can't believe that you actually he recognised," and he gave me a brandy and a packet of crisps, free. And there was a few people in the pub saying, "Geez, I'm coming here all my life, I never got nothing," and you appear on the doorstep. But I think it was just in our brain, we knew them all, and then every day the people that come collect their meat parcels.
Yeah.
And
Come to cash sales then
and
to pay
come
for
to
their
cash
docket,
sales and
yeah.
pay every
But
Friday.
cash sales
then
is a great crack.
for the meal.
Do you remember the day we had the pig's foot?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And I put it up my sleeve.
Yeah.
And do you know the way the pig's foot, you put the pen down between them, you put your hand up on the thing to write out their docket.
We did very innocent, very innocent.
You sent me down to the men's toilet the first
Stop now.
the first time I went to cash sales. I went
Sorry,
to
Marie.
the toilet, and you said last door there on the right. In I went, and Alf Hanley was in.
Very exciting.
She sent me off to the men's toilet.
But we did all those innocent things
Yeah,
working
yeah.
back then. But
Oh, it was
you couldn't do
brilliant.
those today.
Eddie
Now
Keating
you're
in the
trouble.
canteen and
Yeah.
Nancy Sullivan. Do you remember Eddie used to make us the chips when we were working back? And oh,
There was probably
blast
1,000.
and-
There was there 1,000 employees in Clover at the time?
At its peak, there could well have
Yeah,
been.
I think so.
Huge
Between
number.
office
Yeah.
and factory, and then there was National Proteins, which was
Yeah.
just up again. That was all the offal
It was a
like
huge
that
employer, you
came
know.
from
Yeah.
Clover. So it was a huge,
Yeah.
and then they all came from Denny's when that closed. They all came to
work in
Clover
Yeah.
when Denny's.
And it was
I
very,
can't
very
remember
steady
that.
employment as well.
Yeah,
wasn't
but
it?
you couldn't
Yeah.
beat their lunch and sausage now, in
Yeah,
fairness.
yeah.
You can still get that out in
Yeah.
country style.
Yeah, country
Kylie
style.
Leeds.
Yeah,
They
country
got the
style.
recipe.
The original.
Yeah, country style have taken over
like,
that.
it was a
alright.
great place to
Yeah.
work.
But it was a great place, and again, we probably have to thank the tech for
For the contacts
instilling
and
all
getting
that
people
and the
in,
contacts.
I think my
Um,
grandfather actually got me in there.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he asked John Mallon.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was through John Mallon I think I got in, yeah.
Yeah, because then there was the Clover Centre, which
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
up the road
Yeah,
from
social
some
thing.
crack
yeah.
from
down
Clover,
there.
which was a huge thing. Like we all ended up then in Tops of the Town, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember in Waterford was a huge thing.
was, yeah.
And Clover was big
Always
into Tops
had
of the Town.
a show on.
And
Paddy Grant used
Paddy
to-
Grant did it,
yeah.
and my brother worked in Val worked in Eircom Telecom at the time, and they were in competition. And then the teachers,
And the
and
Waterford Crystal.
Waterford
No,
Like,
Crystal
it
was
was
always a big
huge.
one,
Yeah.
yeah.
but we
Dermot
did.
Graham. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
we,
right,
we,
yeah.
we worked in Clover, but we were
Welcome
to
to
the Clover Show as we begin our opening night. Though we only have 1 hour, we try to make your heart feel light.
There you go.
Yeah,
Enjoy our music and our show or whatever.
our singers and our dancers too.
Oh, I
Can't
can't remember
remember
the
the
rest.
last bit now.
Oh, it was great.
CLOVER.
Yeah, it was great. Paddy Grant was great though, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was all that, again, entertainment and fun. And I remember we did 2 shows. We were in the Clover Waterford, and then we were in Clover Wexford.
Oh yeah.
Born to a thread, yeah.
Yeah.
But I never got to the
Enjoyed
West
it.
End after it. I thought I was going to be talented.
Yeah.
But they were fun.
Oh, they were
Fun,
great
fun.
shows.
And innocent.
Like, even
innocent.
to go to, they were fabulous
Yeah,
shows.
yeah.
They
Absolutely
were,
amazing.
yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
couldn't get a ticket from some of us, you know what I mean?
Oh, that was a big thing in Waterford.
was
But
a big thing,
it got too expensive then. It got too elaborate and
Yeah,
And
didn't-
insurance
and
as
some
well
of
and
the
all that sort of
companies
thing.
that had
Sometimes
more
we're
money
spending
than
a lot of money.
others.
Waterford
Yeah.
Crystal would have been
Yeah,
one of them.
they-
now.
Oh, Waterford
They
Christie did a
did
Joseph.
one year.
Yeah.
It
Took
was
the
the
good out
first
of it.
time
It-
ever
it-
I've ever
that was
seen
Tricia was in
Joseph.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Josephine's
Yeah.
amazing Technicolor Dreamcoats. It was like hair on the back of your neck stand up
yeah.
time in that show in Waterford. It
But
was
we couldn't
just-
compete.
Yeah,
A lot
it
of the
was amazing.
smaller, the flour mills or the,
Yeah.
I can't remember all the other shows, but a lot of those couldn't they hadn't the money to compete because
No.
we used to collect our own money and
Right, yeah.
do
And there was a lot of you in it. So like there was, if there was 1,000 working there, you could
yeah,
Yeah,
we
we had
had
a lot
draws
of
and we
out
tried
big
to get
well.
our own. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we didn't get money from the company at the time. Don't
That's
think.
possible.
Well, we used to pay
I
the
mean,
turkey.
you know, that whole thing of like,
There was always a big social
I
thing
don't
going on
think
there.
we
No.
ever thought of
No,
getting out.
Because you had
No,
things
I
like,
didn't.
like
I remember when I was older wanting to move to Dublin at one stage. But like, you know, it was like nearly set for us, like you went to school and you got a job and you worked. I lived at home until I got married. Like I walked out my door and it was then I moved out of home. That was the day I got married. And I remember at one stage wanting to move to Dublin, but my father talked us, there was a few of us going to move off out, you know, it
Oh,
was
yeah,
just
I
one
was-
stage. Yeah, and my
I
father
thought it was
wasn't
London,
happy.
you, me, Vivian Dobbin and a few of us, and we went into Downs's in Waterford and we had it
planned
all
it
discussed
out, yeah.
and we went home and Mammy nearly killed you. She said you were dragging me up.
Of course. Yeah, she was bringing you up.
Yeah, but at that time, like, we would have had good jobs, you know. Like, I worked in a company called EIGSE out on the industrial estate, and it was a really, really good paying job. And like, you didn't leave your good paying jobs at that time.
Even if you hated it.
But I have to say, I did love.
Yeah.
I loved my years. I was there for about 15 years and absolutely loved every minute of it.
And your parents came from a time when they had no work and they were if you had a pensionable job,
you
any of
your
those
money,
good jobs, you kind
and
of
you
stayed
go home
there.
and
There
you
was no
give your
question.
mammy her few bob
Yeah,
every week.
And they give you back something.
Keep the wheels turning. Yeah.
But being a teenager there, like, our social life was like,
plenty-
you went out, you
plenty
started to go to
socially.
the discos, and then like we had youth club discos.
The youth club a good
and
bit,
then we
you
went
had
to
there was
Ferrybank Youth Club disco.
Then there was the bus to New Ross as well, down to the
and
there was
we
the
used to
Barrowland.
walk from Slieverue over to Big Wood to discos
And
on Thursday
Glenmore was
nights
another
in
place,
Glenmore.
yeah.
And then when we get a bit older, it was like the Barrowland in New Ross, and it was I was there, I think,
The
for
Ardrey,
maybe
the
about
Ardrey
2
Hotel.
years with the
Yeah,
Olympia in Waterford, which was the ballroom,
Mm.
and the Ardrey sure was
Yeah, it was
magic.
huge.
Like,
Yeah,
because it
socially
was
there
so-
was no
Yeah.
no lacking socially like for us.
Yeah,
I think we had plenty going on.
But we walked a lot
Walked
of the ways.
everywhere,
We would
yeah.
walk from Slieverue down to the
Ardrey.
That's right. Yeah.
and anyone, if you had a man, if you got a man, he'd walk you back to Slieverue, and maybe him walk back to town after that. Yeah.
Those were real men.
Yeah.
It had to be worth it, though.
Oh yeah.
There was no worth it then, was it?
No.
I'm pulling back on the comment on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, socially
Yeah.
we were fairly.
We
There was
were,
plenty
yeah.
going. We were in striking distance of the city. You see, we're 3 miles from Waterford, so.
Yeah.
You know, on a Saturday afternoon, you could get Keneally's bus in at around 2 o'clock or 1:30 and that kind of thing, and go to the pictures and do all those kind of things. So we weren't that isolated. You know, we were out. Any further out might have been a little bit, you know,
Yeah,
a few miles
yeah.
out the road more, and you might have had a problem socially. But we were in striking distance of Waterford.
Yeah, and that bus was amazing. Like,
The bus was
it
good,
was
yeah.
a great
Yeah.
thing to have Saturday
Yeah.
afternoon.
It was,
Say
yeah,
going to the
yeah.
cinema,
Yes, right.
or
yeah.
hanging out outside Woolworths,
Yeah,
or
Woolworths,
whatever.
yeah.
Woolworths.
Oh,
was
the
there
bus
where
only
Penny's
came on a
is.
Saturday, did it? 'Cause
Yeah,
it
yeah,
didn't-
yeah, it was only in the last 10 years.
In the mornings.
There was a
Oh, was
CN
there?
bus
Yeah.
passed
Okay.
through Slieverue.
And
It
in
was
the
new
evenings.
Ross bus.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people often went to work on that bus
on the
or came
bus.
home in the evening on it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Jim Pernow that worked in Clover,
Yeah.
he used to give me a lift
Lift.
to work and myself and Morta Aiden.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Jim is dead now, but
Yeah.
he was a lovely man.
But there was also a badminton club in Slieverue in you know in the when you were in your late teens more, so we played badminton competitively. Like we could go off on a Thursday night and play a game in Dunnamaggin or Carrick-on-Suir or out in Dunmore or somewhere, and it was great fun
great,
as
yeah.
well. Oh, that was one of the big highlights. I was never a footballer. I loved running all right when I was younger, but I didn't get too far with that one.
Do you remember when there used to be when the hurling was strong in Slieverue? At night there'd be hurling matches on. There'd be a chip van up there.
Oh,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah.
And there'd be cars from our houses up in front of our houses,
yeah.
running almost down towards the village, not quite to
Yeah.
the village, but
Yeah.
I mean the place was chocker with people.
Yeah, and the car park inside the wall
Yeah,
over
inside
the
in the
hurling
hurling
field.
field, yeah.
Yeah.
And the chip van was a big deal. It tells you how
Yeah.
kind of innocent we were, really, that
Yeah.
a chip van used to arrive. And geez, if you had a few pound or a
For
few
a-
bob for the chips, you'd be doing well.
Yeah,
But it was a big deal, a chip van.
yeah.
Not to mention a chip shop.
So when you ventured out into, we say, going to pubs and stuff like that, was that into Waterford you went?
We used to go locally. There was a lot of
Lions in
Lions in
Slieverue.
Slieverue was buzzing at that time. All the groups
And
used
the
to come and
bands were
play.
playing,
And,
yeah. Big names were
Christy Moore used to come, and but Simon were the big ones,
Simon
weren't they?
and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The place was full.
Yeah,
Katie
Katie
Riley.
Riley.
Yeah.
Dermot
Katie
Power, you know those Waterford guys.
They were
Who
great.
else was in Simon? Richie MacDonald,
Skippy
yeah,
Sheridan on the drums.
Yeah.
And then the Root Glen was there.
The Root
Yeah.
Glen
And
was
the
The
Root
Root
great.
Glen was equally, you know,
Country-
big
country
entertainment
music.
during-
I used to
yeah.
go a bit to the troubadours used to play over there.
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah.
And, phew, God, it was great. And
So that was the start of our social
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
it was.
adventures. I suppose. Really,
But
yeah.
Lyons was probably the
Lyons
big
was a big one.
Yeah,
Chocolate
yeah.
one, yeah.
Stapleton's now, but no one used to go to Stapleton's, only the men really
Yeah,
years
Yeah.
ago.
But it's a different,
Yeah.
it was a different pub.
Pub,
It was a
yeah.
really, it was just a one-room
Just a
pub.
man's place,
Yeah,
really,
man's
yeah.
man's pub with a fireplace.
But
And,
when Lyons took over Rockets, then
Rockets then
That's
was
right.
the
It
bigger.
it was,
yeah.
It took
they
off.
built
then,
on the
yeah.
big lounge, and
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
Yeah.
Made it all the difference.
Yeah. and Mary sitting inside the door collecting the.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's when you could
The
charge
fuel
on the
oil.
door.
And then when she
Charge on
wanted
the door,
everyone to
yeah.
go, she'd open the door. So the doors were open in the pub, and you'd have to go because you get so
Yeah.
cold
Yeah,
in the winter. And the guards are over at the creamery. She used to say,
actually the-
"Come on now, lads, the guards are over at the creamery."
Remember the hall in Slieverue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a lot. I'm probably going back a little bit again now, sorry, but we did all Irish dancing with Alana
Yes,
Murphy.
Alana
Yeah,
Murphy.
yeah.
Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
I do.
In the
I
school.
don't remember you
Yeah.
doing that.
You know, there's one thing.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I did
One
all
thing used to stand
big
out.
competitive.
That one thing used to stand out, and you reminded me, Pauline, of it. Is the bazaar.
And the
every
bazaar,
year.
had feeling on the
Yeah.
wheel.
Was
Yeah,
it 3
the bazaar.
weekends we used to have the
Yeah.
bazaar?
One year,
One-
just
one
once
weekend, the
Christmas.
Was it one
Christmas,
weekend or was
yeah.
it 3? I don't know. Oh, or it was probably Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah,
That was
it
a
was
big
huge.
I remember
Yeah.
winning a picture of Pope John Paul.
That was a big deal.
I won
Pope
€100.
Paul.
No, it
Pope
wasn't
Paul.
€100.
Do you remember that?
And-
The
yeah,
hall.
probably,
That's
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
the hall
Yeah.
and that big bazaar as well.
Yeah,
All we used to do was hang around.
roulette.
there.
In the
Wasn't there
wheel.
roulette
It's a
spinning
big
wheel?
spin
Yeah, but there
wheel,
was
yeah.
another one over just inside
Oh, yeah,
the door where
sort of, yeah.
it was like the casinos
Yeah,
in,
yeah,
in
yeah,
Gambling.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
then
this big wheel then
That
to
was a
pick
big
the
event.
tickets, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was a big
Yeah.
event. Yeah.
The stall would have like you could have anything on those stalls. It could be like anything from a box of biscuits to ornaments to
Yeah.
bicycles,
Donated by
anything.
all kinds of
And you
people.
buy the tickets,
Yeah.
and then they spin this wheel, and like in the lotto, I suppose, and this little thing, and then it stop. And if you won, you get your pick of whatever was up on this.
Yeah, the
this
hall
board. It
was a good
exciting.
place.
Yeah, yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it was
Good,
a
good.
good point,
And,
isn't it?
and the dancing was very
Yeah.
Yeah.
competitive and big competitions, and she was really
There was
good.
a lot going
She was
on
a good
there.
dancer.
Yeah, there was a lot of kind of village entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I did the
And
Irish
plays.
dancing and I loved it and I thought it was brilliant at it, and then I entered in a fish one time, and myself and I think it was Marion Gann were the only two people that didn't win a medal. So that was
Right.
a defining moment for me.
There used to be a talent competition as well, because I remember
Yeah.
Jimmy Rochford now yodeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
Right,
yes,
yeah, yeah,
yes.
Jim Cullen.
Jim
Remember
Cullen used to always sing in it.
Yeah, we used
I
to
remember
sing.
singing in it with Esther
Yeah.
Rochford.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm a
Did you
sailor
do-
tired of life. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Home from a sea to find a
Find a
wife.
wife.
Who did
Yeah.
I give to you a
Packet of, well, that's the same
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
If
so
you
we
were
did,
married,
we
you know.
did all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's I remember in the hall. It was
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
and
I
I
mean, there was
remember
always
as well,
loads
at
going
one
on,
stage
yeah.
when I was really young in primary school, there was a travelling theatre came and stayed in Slieverue. I think they were called the EIGSE, was it? And two of their kids came to school, and one of their names was Caroline, and it was the first time I'd ever heard the name Caroline, and it was the most gorgeous name I ever heard. But the kids actually came to school, but they had theatre there every night, shows in the hall in Slieverue. Do you remember that?
Remember that? No, no.
Yeah, Tom will definitely remember
Yeah,
that
yeah,
because
yeah.
he actually looked them up. He
Oh,
put
right.
out a
Yeah.
query on radio one time
Right.
about him. But they lived in caravans, and not more mobile home type things, outside across from the chapel in Slieverue. And they put on these fabulous shows every night. There could be drama. One night there was a murder mystery there, and it was like, I remember being on the edge of my seat waiting thinking there was going to be a murder on the stage. It was that gripping, you know. But as a child, it was all fascinating.
of course,
yeah,
yeah.
it was really great.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, do you not?
No, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Just that little. But you're not. Yeah.
I've written down here someone must be captured. Hogan's on a tandem. What's this?
Oh,
Oh,
no,
they're
That's the two lads. Yeah.
they're the two boys from Ballygunner that came to the
Oh,
tech.
tech, yeah.
We were-
Did they come out on
There's
the
a
Tandem.
Yeah, and we had never seen a tandem. Willie was
that
the
Willie and
leader
Aidan,
of
was
the
it?
driver, and Eden.
Yeah,
Lord,
it was
yeah.
Aidan,
yeah.
Yeah.
It was Aidan died. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was from, he married a Slieverue
girl? Yeah.
girl as well.
Bernie was
Bernie
it?
Haberlin, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
But
yeah.
they came from, that's why,
Ballygunner.
Ballygunner. Winter and summer on that bike.
Jeez, back.
So, I mean, looking back, I mean, obviously, I mean, there's always this thing about people looking back with rose-tinted glasses and all that kind of stuff, but, I mean, it sounds like it was actually quite a nice place to grow up.
Oh, it was brilliant.
Slieverue was a
it was,
lovely
yeah.
place to go. Yeah,
I
Ehrman
felt,
Road was
it felt
lovely.
very safe from where you were
Oh,
talking.
yeah.
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 Apart from school,
Yeah.
which was a bit
Yeah.
unsafe, but
Yeah. But there was always a sort of an unwritten battle between Ehrman and Slieverue as well.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
used to play a league, actually a soccer league, a kind of.
Yeah.
We used to have a team from Ehrmont and a team from Slieverue, and yeah, there was a lot of competition there.
Yeah.
right,
There's competition.
Yeah.
And like they were almost joined, like there was only a few hundred yards between us.
us.
Yeah, but the Ehrmont houses were built, it must have been about
I was
50.
3 when
we
we
came
came
late.
to
Yeah.
Ehrmont houses.
Yeah, it was about
born in
2, I think.
56, so
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
1959.
Yeah.
yeah, it's around that. Yeah.
Yeah, 59
So
we moved up.
They were
there.
marking their territory.
Yeah.
And then the hurling field was just close to us as well, which was a big,
Yeah, we had an
you know,
advantage there.
yeah, we battery was just talking about that. And then there was a wall along the hurling field. Remember we used to walk that
the wall,
hurling
yeah.
field wall, like it would have been as high as the
Yeah, Jackie
roof
Whelan
of the
built
house.
that wall.
Yeah,
Did he?
Jackie
Yeah.
built that
Jackie,
wall.
yeah.
And she
Yeah.
built it single-handed.
did he?
And
Jackie was married to my aunt. He was a fisherman.
yeah, I
He
think
used to
Jackie
go
was
down
a,
to Giles's Key to.
was a tough man. He built that wall himself. I think there were
Wow.
6-inch
Yeah.
blocks, if I remember.
Yeah.
And I think the lads, I think Doris and some of them were drawing down water for mixing the cement in buckets from the house.
God.
Or from
Yeah.
wherever, maybe from one of
Yeah,
the...
the creamery
there was a
maybe,
pump
because
down the road.
there
And
was a
There
pump
was
down,
just
yeah.
down
Yeah,
on
that's
the
interesting one, actually. We
dispensary.
used to have to go to the local creamery.
Creamery
really,
for our
for
water,
our
yeah.
water.
Yeah.
And we used to go to down to Donovan's for our
Yeah,
milk.
that's right.
Yeah.
We often...
Winter's evening,
Yeah.
you'd walk from your house, and Donovan's was about 2 miles away, and you walk down
Yeah.
that big steep hill to get your milk, and you'd wait, and they'd fill it. They were out milking the
You have to wait
cows.
till they milk the cows.
When
But
they
you-
come in, then
Yeah.
they'd fill it from this little what did they
Pint-
call that?
pint
Little pint
measure.
measure with a hook that hung over the bucket,
Just go, yeah.
and they'd measure in the milk.
But
And
the
you
creamery
walk
one for the water,
Yeah.
you'd get your bucket and put it on the handlebars of your
Yeah.
bike
Mm.
There
and
was
off
no mains
over and
water.
fill it with water, and what you had left
That
coming
went
home
on
you
for
had
years.
left.
That went on for years,
You know,
actually. Yeah.
It went on for years, but I remember getting churns then. Daddy got
Yeah.
churns, and he used to go over in the back of the
Yeah,
car.
we were starting to
It's
get
to get
clever,
uppity
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
But we used to bring coal as well on the
Yeah,
bike.
we used to get
You'd,
the coal
you'd
over,
put
yeah.
the
Oh my
coal,
God.
yeah, big
that's right.
100 weight or half 100 coal, and you'd put it in the middle of the bike, have half it on each side, and bring it home from the creamery. And that was about 2 miles away as well.
It'd be a bit of a step,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, hail, rain or snow, we had to go for that milk. We used to fight. We used to take turns.
Yeah.
We had a week each where you go for the
Yeah,
milk.
yeah. I was unfortunate. I think I was almost the only one in my family that went for the milk. I used to.
Oh.
I was either with you
Was
going,
your
or with
job?
you, or with
Yeah.
or with Patricia.
Yeah.
It was kind of the rest of them seemed to share the milk cone in my family.
Yeah, you
I
was your
wasn't
job.
clever
You were the
enough to.
youngest.
I wasn't clever enough.
Obviously, it was, yeah,
But,
because we did the milk as well.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
did
Yeah.
milk.
Yeah.
Our water came from O'Neill's on the Belmont
Yeah.
Road, and our milk was
Yeah, jeez, I remember that.
Connors's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on
and
the
I
mile
never
post
knew-
hill. We
I
were
never
from
knew
the
why
best.
we didn't actually use. There's a pump down under the dispensary. And another pump in Slieverue
I
Village.
think the water quality
Probably
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh,
great.
the
in
creamy
the
water
one.
was good.
The creamy water was good,
Creamy water
yeah,
was good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one evening getting the milk. I was on my own, one of the few evenings maybe that you guys weren't with me. I came out. Do you remember Jim Houston, who used to
Yeah.
live next door to us?
Yeah.
And Jim used to work for a farmer, kind of down a bit from Donovan's. So as I came out of Donovan's gate on my bike with the gallon of milk, Jim was on a Honda 50 coming out of the farm down the road. I can't remember who it was.
Jack Knox, was it? No?
Probably Jack Knox. Could have
Or was it
been,
further
yeah.
down?
Some of those anyway. But I could see him in the distance, so I went like the clappers up the hill. I was going to race Jim home. And sure enough, he was coming behind me in the Honda, but Jim used to sort of just stay in first or second gear. I think he used to never leave it. I don't know if he even knew there was further gears, I'm not too sure. But I could hear Jim coming behind me, maybe 100 yards back or maybe a bit less. And I went up that final hill up out of Donovan's Hill and came to the junction at the top of it. But I shot out onto the junction. I was so anxious to beat Jim home and got a belt of a car.
I remember that. Yeah,
Dick Morrissey.
I remember it, yeah.
Oh, Dick.
In a black Prefect, or Ford Prefect, hit me a belt and up in the air with everything, and the gallon of milk never spilled.
Oh.
The gallon got a bit dinted, or it just kind of squared up rather than rounded, and I just landed on my 2 knees, were sore, and the bike, I had to kind of carry the bike down. But Jim just came behind me on the Honda, looked at me and sauntered on.
Kept going.
Didn't even stop.
Oh, he knew you were still alive.
Yeah.
checked that the milk gallon was still
He
full.
knew I was alive. Things you do as a child. You know.
Yeah.
Do you remember we used to run trolleys down that hill? This hill down to
Oh, the
Donovan's.
trolley that you make.
We used to make trolleys with pram wheels.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This hill was quite
Yeah.
steep now.
And you'd
And
have
the-
a rope and
the
the
rope,
rope
yeah.
the steering like that.
and no brakes.
Yeah, no.
And the
break.
bottom of the
Except
hill
the
was a
foot.
bend.
Yeah.
No,
So we got kind of sophisticated then. We used to have a guy at the bottom of the hill on and off, watching the traffic that we couldn't see. We were going down a hill heading into a very much a right angle bend almost.
Yeah, yeah.
But he'd be standing at the bottom. But what was going to happen if there was a car coming? We weren't going to be able to stop anyway. So
Yeah.
it's crazy
That's
stuff.
when there was a few more cars on the road.
Yeah, things we did.
Yeah.
Did you come down as far as here at all when you were small? Yes.
Not
We
when we
used
were
to.
young.
We used to with Daddy down
When
to
we-
Ballinlaw.
yeah. But I think
Daddy
once
had a
we
great
older-
friend called Billy Carvin, lived on just down at the river, and we used to, on a Sunday morning. Daddy used to bring us for a
Down,
spin
yeah.
down. I used to
Yeah, but
visit.
not play. We wouldn't. We were
We
just
would have
saying it on.
played, yeah.
No, it would have been visiting. But we were just wondering about that, and you know, when we were kids, like living down here was like down in the a black hole because it was so far away from the village.
Yeah.
And we were just saying they walked to mass from here or cycled to mass from here, and like that took doing, and they did, like the Roaches and the Maguires and the Malores.
Maguires, yeah.
They
At
all
school,
came up
they
to mass.
were-
They would have went to Ringville School.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but they would have went to Slieverue Mass and the Tech in Slieverue, yeah. But yeah, I mean that wasn't easy in the winter time to make your way from here. And like the winters were, well, they appeared to be a bit harsher at that time as
They were
well.
colder.
Yeah, colder
When you
and
go to
and
school,
more
you
snowy
have
weather
puddles
as
of
well.
water that has ice covering it. Like, whereas you don't see that much.
Yeah. We
these
used to
days.
skate on the Airmont Road.
Yeah.
You know, you
and
could.
do you remember the quarry? You know the water in the
yeah,
quarry?
yeah.
I mean,
was
it was a
dangerous.
death trap
Yeah,
actually, but
yeah.
we didn't realise that there was a lot of water in the quarry.
was
And we used to
high
walk
water.
across the ice or maybe mess around in it.
But
And,
that's where
Yeah.
the rubbish was dumped as well.
and the
wasn't
rubbish
it?
was dumped
Yeah.
out. We didn't
Yeah.
get
And-
some disease, I don't know.
And how unsafe it was as well, like there was trees growing up through it.
That's right.
Like I mean,
That's right.
it would have been obviously thinner
Yeah,
around those
yeah.
edges.
Yeah, that's right.
But we
yeah.
walked out on that ice,
How did
no
we
bother.
survive at all?
No, nothing ever
And
happened.
rats
Did
everywhere.
anybody ever fall through even?
Don't think so, not that I know of now.
And do you know the way you mentioned obviously you're Ferrybank, Ferrybank, but would you have much to do with the surrounding parishes, like say for example Bigwood or towards Glenmore or different places? Sorry.
Well, the only thing really
Not
was
a
the
lot.
discos, wasn't
The
it?
discus
Yeah.
when
But when we got a
in
little bit
secondary
older,
school,
yeah,
yeah,
secondary
you would
school,
have
yeah.
because they would have come into the Tech and Slieverue from those
we
areas.
get to
From
know them,
Glenmore
yeah,
guys
yeah,
came in
Bigwood.
and girls. There was a few girls in my class from Glenmore. The two Marion Welches, Marion from
Yeah.
Ballahabuck and then Marion, Auntie Sarah's
From
Marion.
the village, yeah.
Yeah.
Monica and Anne.
Monica
yeah.
and Anne. And who else came up from Glenmore? There was a few boys, Christy Liniger.
That's right,
yeah, and a few from Ferrybank would have come
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Big
Oh, a lot from Ferrybank.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
from
yeah,
Ferrybank
yeah,
started to come then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
It got bigger actually
Bigger,
there in
yeah.
Tech.
You
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
moved.
It was
They,
localised.
Yeah,
they
that's right,
started
yeah.
off
Yeah.
down in the hall in Slieverue. That's where he started it.
That's right,
And I
yeah.
think he started with much more just basic woodwork and a few more subjects. And I think there might be a couple of other people going to talk about that part of it. But it would have been Doris and your Breda, I think, was down in
Would
the
have
old
been there,
Tech.
Yeah.
And then they built a new school, and that's when
It
that's
mushroomed down
yeah.
from there, yeah.
Yeah.
And come here, did you just this is the 40th anniversary of EIGSE and all that, but did Jim ever do much history in school with you and all that kind of stuff? Or
Local stuff.
Yeah.
No, not really. I
don't remember any
No,
local
I never.
No.
Obviously, we did history, but not local history. No.
And would any of the people talk about local history?
No, local stuff was never, well, from my point of view, that we never got any exposure to local history, I thought, that I can remember anyway. I can't remember any.
No, I
History
can't
was
either.
History was like 1916.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
That
yeah.
sort
You
of
would learn
conventional
about that,
stuff,
and
yeah,
you'd
your
learn-
standards.
Yeah, a bit about other
And
countries'
unfortunately, we
history.
probably, well,
I suppose
I
they-
probably didn't listen either to,
Yeah.
I probably
suppose they
didn't
had
listen to
stick,
history, I
yeah,
found
yeah,
it.
probably.
But only now, when you start travelling
Yeah,
yourself
that's
and
right.
you really do try and
You get
learn.
an awareness of it.
Like the children are so lucky today that
Yeah.
they get to travel, and I mean, we didn't travel
No,
Yeah.
anywhere,
no.
and
No,
our
Tramores
history was
and
Cromwell and all this big heavy stuff that we didn't even understand probably.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I
right.
suppose when you're growing up as well, and your parents, if your parents and your grandparents were talking about that, you wouldn't have the interest
No.
at
Yeah.
the time. But often I would have said, it's a pity we didn't listen more. And our own kids are probably saying the same thing about us now. It's a pity they didn't listen more.
Yeah, the local stuff, it's probably only recent years, relatively recent years, that the local stuff has really been looked at. 'Cause we never
and
really...
Jim Welsh is
and
involved
Jim
a lot
Welsh,
in
that
that,
just
yes.
spoke about earlier, Jim would be,
Yeah.
would be the
He
man
would,
that
yeah.
would be
I think
leading,
he write a
leading
book
the way.
about it?
He wrote a book.
Yeah.
And I suppose when we were at school with him, he would have had to stick to, well, he wasn't a history teacher anyway, but had he been, he would have had to stick to the conventional,
Yeah.
The
what was
the
on the
program,
curriculum
the
anyway, you
curriculum,
know, but...
yeah.
Do you remember he used to say when nobody had the answer in class, nobody knew what he was, he'd say, he'd scratch his head and he'd say, I think I'll leave the country and go to Mullinavat.
Yeah.
And the other one was,
Yeah.
what was it? Again, if there was a bit of if things weren't going right in the class or whatever, he just shake his head. Is this what the men in 1916 died for?
So he had an interest in history.
And the other thing he used to do, Jim was a serious teacher when he was in the class, but he had a good sense of humour as well. If
He used
you
to
kind
have
of
a
got
smirk.
him, he had a smirk, but I remember on one particular day, and again I won't say the names of the students, but there was a couple of wild ones in the class.
Why not? Go on, spill it.
Well, suffice to say, they would have come from the big wood end of the sticks, right? And I remember Jim asked some question, whatever the answer was, anyway, it was way off mark completely.
Yeah.
But it was kind of whoever delivered it, I think I know who it was. It was kind of funny what he said as well, whatever, I can't remember exactly. But Jim turned into the board and started writing, but I could see Jim was shaking, writing on the board. He was laughing actually.
Yeah,
with it.
so much.
And I realised that's him laughing. He's actually laughing.
He can laugh.
But
He wasn't. I copied my maths in school, and I'm not giving away anything. Jim Welsh would know that. Yeah. I won't say who I copied him from, but he was good. But when I get the perfect answer, he would be in the classroom. He probably did it with all of you, but he would say, actually, Pauline got that one right. Now, Pauline, would you like to come up and
show us on the board
and show the class how you did that? Come on now, Pauline. And you'd say, oh, Jesus.
How am I going to manage this?
How? And he'd let you go up and he'd hand you the chalk. And he'd say, work away there now. Knowing
he didn't know it.
Knowing that you were going, and he'd just say, I think you can sit down now. But he didn't humiliate you but that was enough.
He was an exceptional guy.
An exceptional,
I remember, and again, it's everybody's experience of different teachers. Some of us have strengths and weaknesses with different teachers. But I remember being in All Ireland running. No, first of all, he brought me. He said, "I want you to go up to Kilkenny." He said, "You're going to go on these trials for this relay team under 16 for this All Ireland thing." Up we went, myself and him, one evening in the car. I was only a young fella, and got on the Kilkenny team, we'll say. So that meant going to Dundalk or Drogheda to these All Ireland kind of final things.
Yeah, that was huge.
Big thing. But Jim, I can't remember now to song. But I'm just telling this long-winded story by way of letting you know the kind of a guy he was and still is. And myself and Maura, lovely people. But Maura and Jim made a weekend out of it in Dublin. He collected me from my aunt's, my mother's sister's house, Mrs. Hooper, in Dublin, and Tom Manning was with me actually, because myself and Tom had been working over with Jim for a good few weeks during the summer, so Tom said he'd come along. So we both stayed at my aunt's house. Jim made a weekend of it with Maura and collected myself and Tom and went down to the All Irelands. And
on the way back,
on the way back then, this is to tell you how dedicated he was. This guy wasn't just a teacher. I think we got a silver medal that day, which was okay. Like on the way back then, thing that we wouldn't have been familiar with doing before. He brought us into the Green Isle Hotel, myself and Tom. And Tom Manning can probably remember this. And we were handed a menu which we would never have seen before. We didn't have a menu. And anyway, we kind of managed anyway. But it was that kind of dedication, that kind of vocation that people like Jim Welsh had to his job as he wasn't just a teacher. And there were many teachers like that. The lads have just mentioned some of the teachers there. You know, that take in Slieverue had a unique group of teachers there. They were all, they seemed to be cut from the same block. But for me, Jim would have been leading the pack there now at that.
John O'Callaghan as well was another
teacher.
John,
absolutely.
And he came from down County Kerry somewhere.
Kerry man, that's right.
And he was the Irish teacher. And he was great with the singing and the choir.
And music.
Kate and Pat McGee, do you remember that song?
Yes.
Yeah, we learned that. And he was great for he did the choir, he did school choir. And
Miss Marcy in the other school.
But Mr. O'Shea was a fabulous English teacher as well as commerce and typing and shorthand. And she was great for the poetry. And I remember her reading a book. Do you remember? I think it was by Joseph Conrad. I think it was A Typhoon or something like that. But I remember her reading it in class, and she had such a way of reading. You were drawn in. I could feel. I remember feeling like I was on that boat out at sea. She was amazing.
And you have a poem.
I have a poem actually that it always reminds me of Mrs. O'Shea.
Will we finish with this? Because just see, anybody else want to say before we finish?
No.
That was lovely. That was lovely. And it's a really lovely picture of, especially to take. It's a great write-up there.
Good.
Yeah. I'm not going to read all of this because there's 2 pages of verses. But I remember what I remember most about this poem. Actually, one of the things that's coming to mind. One of the ways she taught us. She used to teach us the grammar, and she was teaching us alliterations, and that was like letters with the same sounding, and it was cassocks commanding, cannonading come, bringing death, destruction, and doom, and that was her way of teaching us the alliteration. But this poem, and I always quote this poem to my kids at home because it's probably the only poem I remember, and I know like a couple of verses by heart, and I'm just going to read a couple of verses, and I'll tell you what Mrs. O'Shea used to say after it. Then it's called Rosabelle, and it's by Sir Walter Scott. Oh, listen, listen, ladies gay, no haughty feat of arms I tell. Soft is the note, and sad a lay, that mourns the lovely Rosabelle. Moor the bargee gallant crew, and gentle lady deign to stay. Rest thee in Castle Revenchalk, nor tempt the stormy firth today. The blackening wave is edged with white, 2 inch and rock the sea mews fly. The fishers have heard the water sprite, whose screams forbade that wreck is nigh. Last night the gifted seer did view a wet shroud swathed round Lady Gay. Then stay thee fair in Revenchalk, nor tempt the stormy firth today. And this is the lady answering back. They didn't want her to go in the boat. 'Tis not because Lord Lindsay's heir tonight as Rosalind leads the ball, but that my lady mother there, sits lonely in her castle hall. 'Tis not because the ring they ride, and Lindsay in the ring rides well, but that my shire the wine will chide, if 'tis not filled by Rosabelle. And after that, there's about 20 more verses in it, so I'm not going to. But she used to turn really into a stare, and she used to say, "The lady doth protest too much."
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that bit.
So that's the poem, and that's my fondest memory of Mrs. O'Shea. Yeah, fabulous teacher.
Well, listen, lads, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't rabbit on now too much, did we?
And it's lovely for us to
I just have.
get an insight.